Welcome to the Kingdompreneur Life Podcast with your hosts, Doreen and Pat Martin. Doreen and Pat became Kingdompreneurs after being in full-time ministry with Bishop T.D. Jakes. They've raised two out-of-the-box thinkers, Elisha and Hannah, that caught the entrepreneurial bug at the early age of 15. Pat, also known as CP, is a real estate investor, speaker, author, and coach. Doreen, or Raw Doreen as some know her, is a board-certified holistic health practitioner and business strategist. Together, they became top income earners in their network marketing company. They are passionate about giving you tools, ideas, and inspiration to take action in your business and spiritual life. Each week, they'll bring you an inspiring person or message to help you live a God-centered, holistic life that is uncluttered and rich with purpose. And now here's your hosts, Doreen and Pat.
Welcome to Kingdompreneur Life Podcast, and we've got some exciting things to share with you today. One of them is how Doreen and I met, and about ministry, and what else?
Meeting, marriage, and ministry is today's podcast title.
Right.
We're going to talk about how we met, we're going to talk about our marriage, and we're going to talk about how we were thrown right into ministry.
We were.
This was before we became entrepreneurs.
It was.
Yeah, but there was a purpose in it for sure. So let's dial back to 1989. Way back.
1989, I had taken a position as a youth pastor at a place called Calvary Chapel, or Calvary Temple, in Newport Richey, Florida, where Doreen's mom and dad were attending church. Doreen was living up in Orlando. And I remember on Thursday, January 5th, 1989, I was on the phone with this lady that moves in the prophetic. Her name is Ecclesiastes Marquez from up in Connecticut.
Of which you're still connected with today. We are connected with her today.
Yeah. Her husband, her boys, her family.
Yeah.
And I had not met her face to face, but she gave me a prophetic word. And she said, amongst other things, she said, in 60 days from today, you're going to meet your wife. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Well, so fast forward, I get to know Doreen's mom and dad a little bit. And on a Sunday, on March 5th... Wait
a minute. You get to know them a little bit? Just a little bit? Because I know my dad. I remember my mom and dad calling me up, telling me, oh my gosh, we got this really cute new guy in our church that's the youth pastor. I was like, okay, great. That's great. I'm like, I could care less. I'm over in Orlando. I'm
dating attorneys and judges and things like that, yes.
No, I was not. I had stopped dating and was really focused on my relationship with the Lord. And I really, at that time, had said to the Lord, do not bring a man into my life. I don't want to date anybody. I really just want to spend some time, nurturing my relationship with the Lord, because up until that place, I always had a man in my life. So this was a period of time for me to just really get to know the Lord, get to know His Word. And I was attending Benny Hinn's church, and I was having Bible studies with girls in my condo on Monday nights. It was a great, season in my life. So I decided to go home for Easter to visit my mom and dad.
March 5th.
And go back to the church, the original church that I actually gave my heart to when
1989.
I was 15. So I go back to church with my mom and dad for Easter, go and visit their church, and you can take the story.
Well,
and I'll interrupt when I need to.
You'll interrupt when you want to.
It's a cute story how God brought us together.
So I'm sitting up on the platform, and in walks, and by the way, I don't have my glasses on, and I need glasses to see far away. I don't need reading glasses. And in walks this beautiful, gorgeous, shapely, all I remember was she had big hair, and
it was the 80s. Everybody had big hair.
and she had a cute pair of jeans on, and a cute white top, and makeup. And she came and sat in the back of the church, and she was late for church. And I was like, whoa, who's this? I want to check her out. Of course, as any, good young pastor would want to do. Do you want to check, people out? Make sure they're not coming in to harm people, of course. But she was so far away, I couldn't see her. So I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of wondering. And then I heard
So wait, you're saying I caught your eye when I walked into the church?
Yes.
Maybe because there was only gray hairs in the church and I was the only young person.
Well, that too. But I'm sitting there and wondering, who this, this young lady was that walked in the back of the church. But it was bugging me because I couldn't really see her. And I couldn't sneak off the platform. I'm looking for an excuse to sneak off the platform. I couldn't find anything. And so now I hear the voice of the Lord speak to my heart. It's not like he came down and says, Pat. He just spoke to my heart and said, that's your wife. I'm like, yeah, what? And he goes, no, I'm serious. That's your wife. I'm like, when you hear God speak to your heart, it's like, oh, that's my wife. Now I'm all excited and happy. And I'm like, well, hold it, Lord. I can't see her. I need to check her out. So in my own, I don't want to say flesh, my own ability.
You could say it in your flesh.
In my own ability. I start asking one of my other pastor friends sitting with me up there in the pulpit while the preacher was preaching. I am asking to borrow and people in the choir. And of course, our choir, a bunch of gray-haired people, and their glasses are really thick. I'm looking for somebody that might have a pair of glasses that aren't so thick so I could check out Doreen. And they're handing glasses, one person down over to me, and I'm pretending to look at something. And then I kind of look out in the audience, and none of these people's glasses are working. So I have to wait for the preacher to hurry up and get done so I could check out this.
So you could walk by faith. Take your leap of faith, like, hey, that might be my wife. I'm going to take a leap of faith and go see her up close.
Yep. And so when the preacher closed out the message and said amen, I was standing next to this fine-looking woman who opened up her eyes and said, oh, where'd you come from? And that's how we met. But I want to go back to prophetess Ecclesiastes Marquez, who gave me a prophetic word on January 5th, 1989. And I didn't count the days then. I didn't even count the days when I met Doreen. It was a few weeks later, and I was praying, asking God for a confirmation after I had met Doreen, after we had probably went to dinner or something. And the Lord said, I already gave you a confirmation. And I was like, oh, that's right. Ecclesiastes gave me a prophetic word, 60 days. I couldn't, back then we didn't have cell phones. So I'm trying to figure out where our calendar is. I get a calendar and I count the days. It wasn't 59. It wasn't 61. You can go back, do the math, add it up yourself. January 5th, 1989 to March 5th, 1989 is 60 days exactly. That was my first confirmation.
So you have to remember when we met, I was at a place in my life that I was like not looking for my husband at all. And I was very content for the first time in my life just being alone and focusing on Doreen. And so I meet this firecracker of a man who now is like on the hunt to get to know me, to get my phone number, to connect with me, So I give him my phone number, and
you couldn't be bothered at the time.
I was just focused on other things. I wasn't wanting a relationship in my life. So, but anyway, we developed a relationship over the phone because, again, I lived in Orlando. That was 2 hours away from where he lived, and we kind of just got to know each other over the phone. Talking. He would come over to Orlando every once in a while, and we would kind of, go to a church meeting or do something like that. But basically, I think we both, really just wanted to make sure that the Lord was included in our relationship. So we would pray together as a couple.
Yeah. And our first date.
What was that?
We went to a Church of God in Christ, a Friday night meeting at an all-black church because the music was awesome, and it was down in Tampa.
Oh, see, I don't even remember that. But anyway, so from the time we met to the time you said you're going to be my wife was probably what, like 24 hours, 48 hours? I
don't know.
It was very, very, very fast. Okay. So he knew in his spirit that I was going to be his wife, but I didn't know that. And I wasn't even looking for him to be my husband. So, I've got this young, attractive, beautiful soul, beautiful heart man that is saying, hey, you're going to be my wife. So hurry up and get the revelation that you're going to be my wife because we're going to get married. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so much for me to take in.
Outside your comfort zone, outside your box.
Yeah, because if you get to know the two of us, I'm the more conservative, slow, and he's more the outgoing, wild, so it was like yin and yang coming together. So it was a lot for me to take in.
You're trying to sound wild?
Yeah, you were wild, a lot more wild in your younger days. You've mellowed.
How about adventurous?
That's true. That's a good word, adventurous. So anyway, so how long was it?
We were engaged a month later. We met on March 5th. We were engaged a month later, and we married on August 12th.
So so a month later we were engaged, and then 6 months later we got married?
About 5 months after that. Well,
see, and I'm terrible with dates.
April,
and it's
May,
not just
June, July, August. 5 months later.
5 months later we were
engaged, and 5 months later married.
Yeah. Crazy. In fact, we talk about it today. We're like, if our daughter came home and did this, would we be like,
oh, hell no,
supporting her?
No.
But my dad supported, and my dad never supported anybody that I dated. And with Pat, my dad.
Share with him what Poppy said.
What part?
When I asked your parents for your hand to marry you, permission, what did Poppy say? I
don't remember. You can tell it, because I don't remember. I honestly don't.
Well, he said God already spoke to his heart.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But before I even asked you, before I even met you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad really liked him, and my dad really felt that he was going to, be my husband. So, yeah. So Dad was absolutely for it. So.
And by the way, for Pops to ever say anything like that was so out of character for him. You never heard Poppy say, "Oh, God told me, God showed me," whatever.
He just wasn't that type of man.
And when he said that, it was like, in those old commercials, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. And when Poppy said something like that, people, what? Hold it.
So, this beautiful occasion happens. We get engaged and we're ready to get married. And of course, this is where the trials start, I would say, right? So Pat's boss, the pastor that he worked for, did not like me, okay? Did not like...
The pastor from hell.
He did not like me. And so...
he didn't like the old regime. He was a new pastor at the church. He hired me to come in to support him, and he didn't like the old elder board or deacon board or whatever you want to call it, of which your dad and all these other guys had been at the church for years and years. And now this guy comes in and he's trying to get rid of your father and all these old guys and get them off the deacon board. And this pastor wanted to bring all his new friends in.
Okay, so what does that have to do with us?
Well, because your Pop's daughter, I lined up on the wrong side of the fence.
Okay, so Pat ends up getting fired from that church.
No, I resigned. The guy put so much pressure on me. I gave him a resume. Your mom helped me type up the letter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so he resigns, but it's like 2 weeks before we're ready to get married.
Mm-hmm.
So, picture this. Like,
I don't have a job.
Your daughter is getting married to somebody that she just met 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and the guy doesn't even have a job. So we talk about this all the time because we would never let Hannah marry somebody who doesn't have a job and that she just met 5 months ago. I mean, it's just totally not the norm. But it just goes to show you that, you know what? Lots of times God does things in your life that is not the norm. That is not going to fit in the box, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up getting married, but again, there was a little hiccup the day of the wedding.
That's not a hiccup.
So of course I'm like very conservative and slow to move sometimes. At least I was back then. I'm a lot better now.
It's not even a speed bump. It was a train wreck.
I could have paralysis of analysis sometimes. So anyway, I wake up, I'm getting ready, and like my brain kicks in, right? My spirit knew that this was supposed to be my husband, but my brain like hadn't caught up with it yet. So I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to go spend the rest of my life with this guy. I don't know if I want to do this. So the day of the wedding, I call Pat and I'm like, we are calling this off. I can't go through with this.
Our families have all flown into town.
I can't go through with this. This is happening too fast. I've got to press the pause button. And so Pat says,
put your father on the phone.
he just goes, put your dad on the phone. And I'm like, no, you're not going to talk to my dad. And he's like, yeah, put your dad on the phone. So my dad takes the phone and
it was a 30-second call.
Yeah. And he basically says,
Poppy, get her to church.
Get her to the church. She's, saying that she doesn't want to get married. Just get her to the church. And so, of course, my dad says, okay, we're going to the church. You're going through with this. You're going to be fine. My mom's telling me, you just have like jitters, whatever. But what it was, this is what it was. Actually, looking back on it now, it's like, the fear kicked in. Fear kicked in. And what happens when we feel fear, right? We fight or flight. Isn't that what they say? Fight or flight, right? So it's like I wanted to just flee. I was feeling the fear of making this commitment of... You
were so stressed.
I was so stressed.
You popped a blood vessel in your eye.
And so what I wanted to do, I wanted to flee from all of this. I did not want to continue down this road. And so, but my spirit knew that this was supposed to be my husband. And so anyway, I just wanted to share the background of what I was feeling. I knew in my heart, you were the one, but in the natural, in my head, it was too much, too fast. So anyway, we ended up getting married.
28 years ago,
yes,
almost 29 years ago.
Yes. And,
29 years this coming August 12th.
Yeah. 29. And I'm terrible with dates.
Oh, she's perfect with dates.
And that's okay. He loves me anyway. So he always knows the dates, the times, everything. I don't know the dates, times. I forget birthdays. But you know what? That's just the way God made us. And we have to celebrate the way God made each one of us.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We met March 5th, 1989 at about 12:30 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Fun. So then the journey begins, right? So now we moved to Orlando. We are going to church. And
we really had a blast going to church.
We did. We had a blast. We were young. We were,
figuring out what we want to do at this point.
Mm-hmm. Because you were unemployed. And
I started work for a car dealership. You took a job as a nanny.
Mm-hmm.
You quit doing court reporting. And we were totally living by faith and saying, God, what do you want next for us? And in the meantime, we just didn't sit back and do nothing. We're like, okay, well, we'll go do something. Mm-hmm. And I looked in the newspaper. We both looked in the newspaper and we started putting one foot in front of the other. And we wound up with some really good jobs in corporate within just a few short years.
Yeah. So we'll just highlight the years of ministry. So, within a couple of years, maybe a year or so, you take a job in Jacksonville.
We get asked to be junior high youth pastors and we volunteered at the Orlando Christian Center.
Yeah.
And with the hope that we were going to be salaried employees, and we were offered that a couple of different times and things didn't work out. And we wind up going to Jacksonville and we took youth pastor positions up there. Mm-hmm. And we were there for about 2 years. But again, we ran into another crazy pastor there.
Well, most of the time, the crazy circled around. This is how the enemy would come in and try to cause division in our marriage and division with who we were working with, right?
Oh, yeah.
All the time when we were in ministry, it would end up like this. Pat would get a job on staff at a church. The church would love him, and the church would hate me. All the time.
She's not pastor material.
I was never pastor.
All kinds of crazy stuff.
This is how religion and religious people, think, right? They don't care if you just love the Lord and they want to know, what's your formal training? I did not have any formal training. I love Jesus. That's the only formal training I had. And I love my husband, right?
Or to get to know you.
Yeah. So anyways, I always, the enemy always used that as a rejection, right? To reject me, that I'm not good enough. Always wanting to pound that nail, that I'm just not cut out for ministry, right? Pat's the one. They want him. They just don't want me. So that would cause extra stress, of course, on our marriage, extra stress on Pat. Anyway, we ended up leaving that ministry and then
coming back. We came back and moved in with your parents for 6 months.
We did. And we were on food stamps
for a month.
we had the baby, right? We had Eli.
Yes, we had Elisha.
And so we are living at my parents' house. We're married. We have a kid. We're like, okay, God, what are you doing? Where are you taking us? What should we do?
So you go to school and get your nail license to do nails, and you open up your own business. I go find another job. I'm working in down in Tampa, and back then it was pagers. So I became a pager salesman and peddling pagers. And back in the day, that was all it was an easy thing to sell, and I could make money with it.
Yeah. So I opened up a nail salon.
Called Hands of Praise.
Yeah, it was, God blessed it. It was super successful.
Your sister still runs it today.
Absolutely. And then Pat gets a call from somebody for a job out in Texas. I leave the nail salon, which was really hard for me, and I follow him, and we go out to Texas. And
you last one day in the guy's office.
Yeah. So again, they hired both of us. We go out there. I lasted 1 day.
Not even a day. She lasted about an hour and a half. This guy, another crazy guy. He's a ex-professional football player and has a prison ministry out in Texas. And he asked my wife a question. And by the way, and thank God for him. He moved us out and paid us to move and all this stuff. We get out there. He gets some guys to help unload the truck. And he goes, and we arrive like at 6:00. We have no place to put our 4 or 5 year old son. We haven't shot out of preschool or anything. We just got into town at 6 p.m. to unload the truck. Now we have boxes everywhere in the house. And the guy tells us, I'll see you in the office tomorrow morning. I'm like, shoot, man, we got to find clothes. We're going through boxes, and we don't know what to do with our son. We're like, well, hold it. You meant like just me? No, I want both of you in the office. Oh, well, okay. So we're hunting, trying to find an iron to touch up some clothes. And what are we going to do with our son? He goes, oh, so-and-so's wife. She'll watch your son. Well, we don't even know who. We didn't even know this lady. And we're like, okay. So, we're really making the best of it. And he asked you a question was, hey, how are you doing? It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And you just got there. You're frazzled. We just spent 2 days driving on the road. We haven't unpacked. We haven't gotten settled. We haven't even gotten groceries. By the way, they shop for us and put a few groceries in the fridge for us to the house that we moved into. And Doreen answers the guy and says, well, things are kind of miserable right now until we get settled. And he says to my wife, get your stuff out of here. You're unappreciative. I won't have anybody miserable in my office. And that was it. It was like, welcome to your first day on the job. And I get a phone call. A phone call from him, and he goes, I just fired your wife. Give me a reason not to fire you right now.
Now you have to look at, like, at some point, Pat is saying, maybe it is my wife. Maybe she is the problem, because everywhere we go, she seems to be the issue. But in looking back, I think it was just the enemy wanting to cause division. Don't you?
Oh, absolutely. That guy, I think, has some bipolar issues or whatever. He's just off his rocker. But God used him to move us to Texas.
Through every bump, trial, God is still using it all to work together for your good. Sometimes you can't see it at the time, and it takes a few years, and then you look back and you're like, okay, God, so that's what you were doing. So so God took us, used this gentleman to get us out to Texas. We go out to Texas.
God for that, yes.
Yeah. And of course, I've got free time on my hands now because I'm not employed. So I decided to volunteer at the Potter's House Church and give back there, because I was like, I'll just serve there in the bookstore and help sell, books and tapes and stuff like that. And so I'm serving, and all of a sudden a job opens up there at the bookstore, and
you get hired.
I apply and I get hired.
I'm not hired there. I'm still working for the prison guy.
So it was so beautiful. Like, God opened the door for where he really wanted me to be. I had absolutely zero experience in running, managing, marketing, and none of that. I had zero experience. But God, he doesn't necessarily call the qualified, right? He qualifies the called. So he knew that I had what I needed inside of me, and he was going to take me on this journey to teach me how to do marketing, selling, all of that with this amazing ministry. So,
well, let me share this, that about 6 months after she gets hired, I get hired there. And 4 months after working in the prison ministry, we're in a prison, and the guy throws me a pair of keys to a vehicle and says, hook them back to town. You're done. I'll give you 4 months extra salary. And I'm like, cool, adios. I'll figure something out. And so within a few months, I get hired on with the church, but she gets hired there. She gets the job at the church. I don't get the job at the church first. She does.
The one who is not cut out for ministry.
Yes.
Yeah, the one that doesn't have what it takes.
The one that gets fired in an hour and a half at her job.
All these negative things that have been spoken over my life. God takes them. He's like, you know what? That's my daughter. I'm going to take care of her. And
2 years into it, tell them about the award you were given.
2 years after being employed at the Potter's House, I was employed with TD Jakes Ministries, which is the marketing side. I was employee of the year, right?
Out of 350 employees.
Yeah. So, God's so amazing how when he puts you in the right place where he has you to flourish and use your gifts, it definitely makes an impact and makes a difference. So we were there for an amazing 9 years, babe. Were we there?
Between 8 and 9 years.
8 and 9 years. And that was the best learning, training, working underneath Bishop T.D. Jakes.
And Elder Silas Wheeler.
They trained and taught me so much about marketing, business, selling, all of that. That was like the best school that I could have gone to. And Pat was in the ministry side of it, where he was...
I was an elder of the church, but to break it down for people, I was basically the street pastor to the homeless. And I had about 80 people under or in the ministry area with me as volunteers. So
he was just as excited, and his area of ministry flourished. He still keeps in contact today with a lot of the people that he had helping him in that ministry. He got the keys to the city of Dallas because he had made such an impact there.
From the mayor?
From the mayor, making a difference, helping homeless people. It was truly a beautiful time in our life. We really, really enjoyed that. And then, after 9 years in, God decides to make a transition and bring us back to Florida. And what we'll do is we'll finish that story of how we jumped into being kingdompreneurs on the next podcast.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed our story. Blessings to you. And always put them first. Even when you don't feel like it, it'll make a difference.
Amen. See you next time, next week.
Thank you for listening to the Kingdompreneur Life podcast. Don't forget to join us next week for another inspiring episode. We'd love for you to head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. We love reading all your comments. You can also connect with us on our websites. Pat is CoachPatMartin.com, just like it sounds, CoachPatMartin.com. And Doreen is found at RawDoreen.com. That's RAWDOREEN.com. You can download your free gift that will help you live life uncluttered and rich with purpose.